I would like to talk about a piece of digital citizenship that I feel like is oftentimes forgotten about in the elementary classroom, and that is teaching citations and plagiarism and essentially copyright infringement to elementary school students. A lot of times this is forgotten about and not really brought up until middle school and high school. However, I think that waiting so long is problematic and it causes a lot of issues. It's really important to expose students to these rules at an early age so that they can continuously practice them and know what's expected of them later on. When teaching our students about plagiarism, it's really important to understand, for both educators and the students themselves, what plagiarism is. So plagiarism is essentially taking someone's work without crediting them, taking their work without permission, using their work as if it's your own. So a lot of times students do what's called unintentional plagiarism, which is where they don't really realize that they're taking someone's work. And that's what we see a lot in the elementary school age because students are not taught what citations are and are not really taught what plagiarism is. So they unintentionally steal someone's work. It's also important that students really understand the difference between plagiarizing and common knowledge. So, for example, a fact like the sky is blue is common knowledge and therefore does not need a citation. However, if the students are to find statistics about the amount of times a certain cloud appears in the blue sky, then they would need to cite that. So there's a difference between what everybody knows and what they should know versus things that should be cited and paraphrased and quoted. Now with that, it's also important for students to understand what fair use means. So fair use means that students can take a certain amount of work, quote a certain amount of information, paraphrase with permission under the First Amendment. However, they cannot take information unless that permission is granted to them. If an information is not copyrighted, if a website or a book or a database is not copyrighted, then that means that they cannot take that information. And this is a difficult concept for students to understand, especially after they understand citations, because they think that, especially in this age where everything is so open and you can use anything, they think that websites can be used at any time. However, it's important to really emphasize the ideas of fair use. So not only is it important for us to teach our students what plagiarism is and the basics about it, but it's also really important to teach them why they need to learn it. The main thing is that plagiarizing is a crime, and while many elementary students are not going to be thrown in jail or given a fine for plagiarizing, it is important to teach them for later on because it could be a problem that they run into in middle school, high school, and college. So, for example, my second grade students really got the idea that plagiarizing is a crime, and every time we would paraphrase from the text and we would highlight information and rewrite it into our answers, they would scream, "Make sure you rewrite it because that's illegal. You can't steal someone's information. That is illegal." So a concept of stealing is illegal, stealing someone's direct words is illegal, is really important for students at a young age to understand. And like my second grade students, once students do understand that, then it stays with them forever. So it's something as simple as that makes teaching plagiarizing really important to elementary students. Another reason why this is so important is because students these days have such easy access to all the information in the world. With the click of a button on their phones or with a quick search on their computer, they can find anything and they can use any information. So citing really makes them think about what they're borrowing, what they're taking from the text, and if that text is also reliable. I think it's also important that we make sure that students understand that citing text really helps to back up their information. If students are writing a nonfiction novel about their favorite animal and they are researching all these facts about the animal, then including citations from a book or from an online website can really help to show that they did do their research and that what they're providing is factual. There's a few ways that I plan to teach paraphrasing, plagiarism, and citations in my own classroom. So one of the easiest ways, I think, is to have students look at different examples of answers. They can look at different examples and figure out which ones are plagiarizing from a specific text and which ones are not, which ones have actual citations and are paraphrasing. So for this, I would put students in groups and then provide them with an article and two different sets of answers. Then students together would have to decide which one's correct and which one's not, which one's illegal, and which one is doing all that we've been taught, and which one is showing correct digital citizenship. I would do this a few times, and I would even do this a couple times a week until students really understand the difference between plagiarism and actually citing and using correct information. I also think it's important that I, as their teacher, model how to be a digital citizen and paraphrase and cite information. So it can be something as simple as having this image source when I show pictures to them. Something as simple as this will show them that I'm citing my information, so they should too. Additionally, I think it's really important at a young age to teach students how to paraphrase rather than quote. I think quoting should come more into play in the later grades, like middle school, maybe even some 5th grade. However, paraphrasing is something that students should learn because it helps them to understand the concept of stealing someone's words a lot easier, because they just have to put the text into their own words and add a little citation at the end. It's a lot easier for younger students, I found, to understand. Over here is a little example of an anchor chart that I would provide my students on how to paraphrase information. I've done lots of paraphrasing of information in my own classrooms. I have students highlight text and then rewrite answers in their own words. Something as simple as that can really help to teach students how to paraphrase. Additionally, allowing students to practice these skills as much as possible will help to prepare them for the best success. So when students actually have to cite information, not only do they paraphrase or sometimes quote, but they also should include the citation. And I think it's really important that teachers stick to one set of citations so that students don't get confused. Once students get into high school, then they can be exposed to different forms of citations. However, in the elementary grades, I think that sticking to adding a last name and a year at the end of a paraphrased answer can be really helpful. Additionally, adding something like this at the front of the classroom where students can just look up and understand how to actually cite something on a citations page can be really helpful. I think a citations page would be something that would be more geared towards the later elementary school grades. For primary levels, I think it would be important to stick to just adding the last name and the year just to get them into practicing how a citation should look and how to do it. That way, when it comes time and they're writing really big research papers in middle school and high school, they aren't lost on how to do this. So here are some really great tools that students can use to really cite information for their citations page or bibliography or reference page. So Easybib is the most common one. It really allows students to do a couple things. Students can check their paper by clicking on this and uploading their paper to see how much citations they need and if they have any plagiarism. They can also create their own citations, and this is what this is most commonly used for. So students can press on that, their source. So if students want to cite a website, then they can, and they can search for it. And it will create a citation for them in an MLA format. This is also a good site to expose to students at a younger age because it also has different citations that other teachers might like from them, such as Chicago formatting and APA. The only real negative of this site is that there are all these ads, so you would need to teach your students also about being safe online and not looking at these ads or clicking into them. And every time you do create a source, an ad will pop up and cover the entire page. So Noodle Tools is another great citation site. And this one is a little better than Easybib because there aren't a lot of ads that pop up at you. So students can click their citation style and then pick what they would like to cite. And they can enter all of these things that they know. They can find it on the website and it will create them a nice citation for their citations page. Finally, one for the teachers is Turnitin. And this is a really great site that allows teachers to have their students upload their papers and then check the plagiarism percentage. There's also an option where students can insert their papers ahead of time and check their own plagiarism and then edit it where needed. But this is really good, especially for the older grades, to see if students are understanding the concept of plagiarism and if they are stealing information unintentionally or intentionally. So this is why I think plagiarism and citations and copywriting is really important to teach to younger elementary school students. It really helps to set the basis for their school years to come, and it's really important for them to practice these digital citizenship skills at a young age, especially in the growing age of technology. Here are my citations, and please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have about my ideas or anything else in regards to copywriting, citations, and plagiarism. Thank you.